Well, and welcome to the live. It's a chilly, rainy London here on the 1st of December. Thanks especially to those of you in the US joining, because I guess it is Thanksgiving weekend. So I appreciate you giving me your time and joining me here on the live. Just a reminder, as always, if you are leaving a question, please pop the word question in front of your question, because it helps me identify that. So for the next 60 minutes, I will answer as many questions as I possibly can. Lots of regulars here, which is great. A couple of great questions coming in. So just checking it's all going live. Yeah, that's good. So what I thought I would do is just a couple of quick housekeeping things while people just join. I have mentioned a couple of times the Cruise Globe, and I just want to touch briefly on that because they're doing a promotion or a thing. Promotion, is that the right word? If you sign up and share the link, because they're going to do a prize draw for a free cruise. So I thought I'd mention that. So those who don't know, this is the Globe. So you can put all of your cruises in. This is a whole bunch of my various cruises in. So they all show up. You can then choose any specific cruise, for example, like my recent Antarctic cruise and so on. And that's completely free, and you'll be able to build up over time your various cruises. So they are doing a promotion, as I mentioned, where you can win a cruise up to the value of £3,000. I guess that's what, $3,500 if you sign up to the Globe, and then you share the link. I'm not sure the exact launch date when the Globe goes live. I think they've almost finished a lot of the beta testing. So anyway, if you sign up there, it's really good fun. I'm slightly addicted to it. In terms of seeing all of the kind of cruises. So unlike the maps that I've got there, obviously you pay for the maps, you buy the maps, and the little booklet which I've collected. I've just got my most recent map in. Obviously those come with the fee. You pay for those. So in 2 weeks' time, I will be on this cruise, the 60-night Grandeur Panama Canal cruise, which will now be my 4th time going through the Panama Canal, 3rd time full transit. And I'm very excited about that indeed. So there will be a live stream next week. In fact, there's going to be 2 live streams next week. On Sunday, the regular one that we're doing now. And on Saturday, for patrons and channel members, there will be a specific patron channel member one as well. So busy weekend next weekend as I'm madly packing to get ready to head off. So let's get stuck into the various questions. Actually, not many questions yet, so that's quite going to be very easy then. Maybe a very short live. So see the world in line with your recent video. So I did a recent video, I should put the link there, which came out this week, which was sort of in response to questions I've been asked. And someone had originally asked me if I would do a video around sort of nightmares you face on a cruise and how to deal with them. So I did it came up this week. So I covered things like if your cruise gets cancelled, either before or even during the cruise, if you miss ports, if you lose your luggage, if you fall ill, I can't remember, there's a bunch of other ones. And I've looked at all the kind of the things to do if they happen, things that I've seen work or been advised. If they haven't happened to you directly, people that have happened to have solved, or the cruise lines have told me the best way of doing it. So those of you who didn't follow it, I should actually do a little screen grab. There is a story running in the media at the moment, sitting in the UK, where Swan Hellenic, they had a repositioning cruise. It's quite a long cruise, probably nearly up to a month long, which was sailing from Cape Town across to reposition Ushuaia in Argentina to start the Antarctic season. And they were due to sort of skim across the top of some Antarctic places like the South Shetland Islands. I think they might even go into Antarctic Sound, so right across the top part of Antarctica. But they had some engine problems, so they had to go really slowly. So they decided that they were going to not call on any of those Antarctic things. So even though there's lots of sea days, that pretty much people were just having sea days. They were going to get to Ushuaia early. So it was relatively inexpensive in relative terms. It still cost quite a few $1,000s or pounds or whatever people were booking. But some of the passengers got very irate, and they were offered I think it was 50% refund, 60% future cruise credit, something like in that ballpark. And they wanted a full 100% refund. So some of them went on a hunger strike. I don't know how long that lasted. There's lots of pictures of them wearing little signs saying, give us full refunds. And Swan Hellenic kind of resisting that. So it must be pretty tense on board. So it's worth Googling that and following what's going on with that. There were apparently quite a few Russian passengers on board who have been the most irate about that. So and there was a mix that was covered Brits, and I'm not sure the exact mix. For those who don't know, Swan and Lake it's an old UK brand that went bankrupt many years ago, and then it was revived now as an expedition line. I think they have 2 ships, which are very similar ships in shape-wise to like the Lindblad ships. Anyway, so Sea the World has asked, which style of cruising is more prone to change, river, ocean, or expedition? In reality, based on what I've seen, all of them above, although the ones that have the most dramatic impact are ones that are ocean or expedition. So, for example, Bob and Holly, who you might know, Innocents Abroad, their channel. In fact, I'm seeing them tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. They're in London. They were going on the brand new Seabourn ship. I guess it was Venture when it came in, but they had problems, so South Georgia was dropped. But also, you might have seen recently that Norwegian have cancelled a huge amount of cruises heading into 25-26 because they're going to put more ships in the US. So there's many of these, and there's different ocean ships. There's been a lot of stuff recently with some Carnival ships and so on. They have the most dramatic impact because obviously they have long distances travel. In reality, if there's a river issue, whether it's water levels or ship issues, river cruises don't travel very far. They might only travel 20 or 50 miles a day. So actually they can bus people around and move them between ships much easier. So although they have issues, the river ones tend to be more water related, too high, too low. But the one that has the most disruptive effect are definitely ocean and expedition. So those are the ones that are kind of the biggest issue. So NFL football is on today. So I guess maybe that's also why. So if you, I hope you're not clashing too much with football and stuff. John has a great question here, mostly because it's a fairly topical question for me anyway, which is between Viking ocean cruises or Seabourn, which would you consider traveling on for the coast of Africa? My answer is Regent. And the reason I say the answer Regent is that's what I booked. So in next year, in fact, I'll have just come off it this time next year from Goes to Plan. So I actually looked, because I really wanted to do that West Africa trip. So I looked at different options and I chose Regent, partly because of the itinerary. Now, they all were fairly similar pricing. Obviously, Seabourn and Regent are more similar prices, Viking a little bit below that. But the Regent itinerary was particularly good. And I liked the Regent ship because it's navigated. Now, it is a pretty old ship. I have been on it before, but it's only 450 passengers, 430 passengers, something like that. Obviously, Seabourn is around 600-700. Viking is just under 1,000. So this is even smaller ship. So it goes to a couple of ports that are perhaps a little bit on the smaller side. All of the itineraries are pretty similar. Also, what I liked about Regent is all of the excursions were included in the fare, and there's a pretty good range of excursions. And I've chosen all the excursions. In reality, I did end up spending each of us, because Mark and I both go maybe about 700, 800 pounds, so about nearly $1,000 on some of the excursions. But I just like that kind of combination. Now, I did toy between the others. I just liked having been to Japan, having been to, I just felt I quite liked what they did. Now, they are a little bit on the weaker side overall with enrichment. Viking, I knew would be strongest on enrichment, but I just felt that was, I know, none of these are going to have incredible entertainment, but I'm really going for the itineraries. So that's why I chose it. Now, if, John, it is literally between Viking and Seabourn, I would say now Seabourn have just launched this week their like a Grand Africa trip. So they clearly have a lot of experience with Africa. They're doing the itineraries. But certainly Viking, if you're very much into the enrichment side, I would lean a little bit more towards Viking if it's between these two. Also, it's probably going to be slightly less costly. And the itineraries are kind of similar. But I did choose Regent when I kind of broke it down. A lot of it hinges on the itinerary. And what I liked about the Regent itinerary, now I know someone who's currently on Azamara doing a similar itinerary as well. They have a lot of sea days. What I liked about the Regent itinerary is there was quite a lot of sea days getting down there, but it's quite nicely broken up with 2 or 3 sea days in between, traveling between this. So I chose Regent. I will go back and take a look at the Viking and the Seabourn one. Both have those experiences. But that's what I chose. I didn't have time before this to put my specific itinerary, but maybe I'll make a little note here, John. I'll put my itinerary as a link, which one we chose, in the notes. So maybe 5 or so minutes after the Synod, if you are interested, you can take a look at that one as well and see what that is. So Andrew is here, which is great, from Brief Cruise. Moonman 547. So you're obviously traveling. You're in North Carolina. I guess maybe you're Mike and Kerry, you're there for family or whatever, I guess. So you're not working this weekend, I guess, which is great. So chilly early afternoons, and thanks for doing so. I guess you're on a completely different time zone. So the Wu-Tang Life. And thanks very much for the upcoming Panama Canal adventure. Yes, I'm really, really looking forward to that. By the way, just as a little aside, as you know, I am extremely obsessed by Panama Canal. I've actually realized that I now, by the middle of 2026, will have done the Panama Canal 6 times, because in 2026, the group cruise that is for patrons and channel members is a Panama Canal cruise on the Zeta Dam from Miami to San Diego. But just a couple months after that, I booked South America. In fact, going from Buenos Aires all the way around and going back to the Panama Canal the other way and ending up in Miami. So in the 26, in the space of about a month, I'll be doing it twice. You can never do enough Panama Canal. So thanks very much for that. I'm very, very excited about that. What I may try and do this time is actually try and resist filming and just enjoying it. I know I will fail because my sister is here this weekend. She's downstairs watching Christmas movies at the moment. So I showed her some of my Panama videos and I kept thinking, I could do with better footage here and better footage there. So I suspect I will end up doing more footage. Anyway, the Wu-Tang Life, fighting on cruise ships. Should cruise lines have a no-sail list, just like the airlines do have a no-fly list? So in reality, they do have, but I think your point is a really good one. It tends to be cruise line by cruise line. So Carnival, for example, will ban people, but it's kind of, it seems to be very specific to that particular brand. I'm not aware, now I might be wrong, but as far as I'm aware, you might get banned from going on a Carnival ship, but you could still go on Norwegian or whatever, or maybe even a Princess ship, because I'm not sure that's being sort of shared between them. So I think yes is the short answer, and I think that what it sort of does exist is my understanding that it sort of does it does visit. Susan M is in the UK at the moment. So Susan, you have chosen a terrible time probably to visit. We are having the most terrible amount of rain. There's been a series of storms coming through. I can't remember, there was a storm about a weekend or two ago, which was so much rain, and again this week. So hopefully that significantly improves and you have a really great time. Bob and Holly are here in the UK. They're on the Heathrow Express from London to Paddington. As I mentioned, very excited. I'm going to be meeting up with them tomorrow, catching up with them. They're in between. They've just done a river cruise, so I'm sure we can look forward to some great content coming out about that. And they're heading off on another cruise, which I think I'm right in saying is a Cunard, but so more great content to come. Just reminded that's their channel, Innocence Aboard, Bob and Holly. So looking forward to seeing them. It's been a while since we caught up with them. Traveling and Sarah's here. Big shout out to Sarah, who very kindly sent me a box of chocolates, which we got I think on Friday, and they are completely gone. Partly helped, not entirely from me, but I had my sister, my mother-in-law staying, and they absolutely loved those. So they didn't last very long. So that was very tasty and a little hamper as well. Warren has another question: is there a cancel for any reason annual policy? Warren, I believe there is. I think I have an annual policy. I need to triple check. And I do have a cancel for any reason in that. Again, the challenge with insurance, as I mentioned, I am looking at making an insurance video, although people who insurance keep steering me away from doing it because it's so complicated. But certainly within my policy, but annual policies obviously vary significantly country by country and so on, but you can get a cancel for any reason. The challenge that I have with an annual policy, Warren, talking to other people as I've been exploring this, is the cancellation amount is very small. So even though I have with my annual policy, they have different, gold plus, blah, blah, blah. But, the cancellation is maybe, I can't remember the exact number, so don't call me the exact number, but it's maybe £6,000 or £7,000, or maybe $10,000. So the problem is, whilst you can cancel, if you're going on an expensive trip like that one I was mentioning, the Africa one, it doesn't even touch the size of the cancellation. So as I look, as I'm doing on more longer trips and bigger trips, I want to relook that way, talking to other people, like when I was on my Antarctica trip recently and comparing some of the insurance that people were doing, they're able to get, obviously it costs a little more, but trip by trip with better kind of, cancellation amount. So I might start playing around a little bit more, particularly in these very high value trips, of looking at, can I either get my annual policy to have a higher amount, or do I need to go more individual to cover the amount? So the cancellation is in the policy, but it's the amount that becomes particularly important. Tia O'Hara is in 6 weeks going from Panama City to Miami. That's a great itinerary. I wonder if you're on Oceania, because that's a popular Oceania itinerary, and that's what I did. We were supposed to be on Serenity, we did it in Marina, and it's quite fun doing it the other way around. A lot of people would argue, and in fact, I mentioned one of my videos, the main book, I've forgotten what it's called now. Damn. I have the book in it. It's in my other room. But they always argue we should go from the Caribbean and see it that way. Going through the Panama Canal other way is fantastic. So, and if it's on Oceania, it is fantastic. Echo Bravo, obviously good to see you back, and obviously a aviation fan with that name in that picture. What are your thoughts on the UK ETA, especially because it applies to transiting too? We now need ETA and ETAIS for our Cunard cruise to Norway next year. Maybe a good video topic. So those people who don't know, so basically what's happening is, obviously for those of you who don't live in the US or Canada or even Australia, will know that when you travel there, you have to get an ESTA. So for example, when I go to Australia, we have to have an ESTA. When I've been to Canada, if you're flying in, you need their equivalent. If you're going to the US, you have to have an ESTA. So it's, so what's happening is the UK are introducing one, and Europe is introducing their own, obviously for all those countries within the European Union. So the UK one kicks in fairly early next year. I think it's from about January. I did tweet about this the other day, but I think it's from about January the 9th you can start applying for it. I can't remember. It comes into force quite early on. And then the Europeans are introducing those much delayed. And there's still a lot of talk about delaying those, because when they introduce it, they're also introducing it at the same time, where every time you enter for the first time, you have to have photograph and fingerprints taking. And it keeps getting delayed because they're worried about clogging up, the ports, or mostly the air. They're mostly worried about things like ferry ports, like between Dover and France, for example, with this huge volumes of cars and traffic. So they're worried about clogging up, and also, of course, at airports. If you think about all these tourists flying in from all around the world, how slow it's going to be, and they're worried about getting up to speed. So, I probably should do some sort of update. Maybe it's worth doing a short video rather than a detailed video. But so that's probably a good one to look at. The problem at the moment, to be honest, Echo is, so I'm just making a note for myself to that topic, is the dates keep changing and getting pushed back. So you almost need it to be sure that it's locked in. But you're right. The problem is, if you're flying into the UK, you're going to need one to fly in. What you'd probably need to check, Echo Bravo, and I don't know the answer to this one, so I will check that, is if you actually need one if you're on a cruise. Because, for example, if you on a cruise, say you embark in Anchorage and you're getting off in Vancouver, you actually, and you're on a ship, you don't need the Canadian ESTA equivalent, but if you're flying in, you need it. So I need to check as well whether, if you're on a cruise, say a UK, Southampton to Southampton, calling into European ports, if you need it. So that is a very good one to follow up, because it's very complicated. My rule of thumb, like even when I went to Canada, I still got an ESTA because it was not that much. It was, £7, $10, something like that. So it wasn't a lot of money, just for the reassurance. Rhonda, good to see you here. If tips are included, do you give extra for great service? If your butler was great, but your room attendant was fine, would you give extra to the butler and not the room attendant? Yes, and yes is the short answer. Let me unpack this a bit. Obviously, gratuities and tips are one of the most argued about and fraught kind of topics that you can possibly have in the world of cruising, that and dress code. So, but Rhonda is right. My approach, and obviously the UK has a slightly different approach. And in the US, people are more used to tipping. It's part more of the culture. Australians obviously not used to tipping. So let me tell you what I tend to do is nowadays most tips will either, most cruises will either have gratuities included or auto added. So if I get fantastic service, and you're right, I focus really on the cabin steward, and if I've got it, cabin stewards, if it's plural, and if I've been on something with a butler. So you're right, I will tip for great if the service has been great. So I'll give you an example. We were on Cunard Queen Anne, and the second or third cruise, and we had a fantastic cabin steward. He was really brilliant. He was very experienced. He'd been around with Cunard for a long time. He'd moved across to Queen Anne, Elizabeth. He didn't actually like being on the Queen Anne. Was looking forward to going back. We then had a butler who was the first time he'd ever been a butler, his first time he'd ever been at sea, and the first, so he was okay. But we found we were always having to leave him notes. We were having to remind him to things. So we did tip our room attendant, and we didn't tip the butler because we figured the standard gratuity was more than fine. Now, a lot of people I know tip anyway, but so I will generally tip if it's been great service. And if it's been fine, I don't tip. I find it very hard not to tip, even though I have tips. I do double tip, but definitely I will tip if, and that's a good example of where they were both great. One was really great and one wasn't. So I tipped the room attendant. It was quite hard. I felt really guilty, but that's because I guess I've grown up with the old old envelope days. A couple of interviews come, so I need to make sure that I'm speeding up a little bit so I don't miss any. Dean, good to see you. We just returned from a Viking River cruise with Viking Air Service. It was a disaster. Last minute flight cancellation and no one at final destination. Is this normal? So Dean, it's very interesting because normally Viking is pretty good because they are pretty good at seeing you kind of the door to door. I would talk about a bit of hand holding, shepherding experience, but I have seen a lot of comments. Now, obviously they're contracted out. It's not their own people. So they're contracted out to local port handling agents. So a lot of it depends on just how good they are to a degree. They obviously have their own flight center. But I have seen recently a lot of people very upset about particularly the routings and cancellations. One of the things you need to bear in mind, and I see a lot also with Silversea, to be honest, is obviously the cruise lines, if you're booking flight to them, and with Viking, so now I know if you book in the UK, the standard is flights included. They will obviously try and route people in the most, for them, cost-effective way of getting there. So sometimes you have quite complicated routings. So with my Viking cruises, I specifically take the flights out, partly because I want to stay longer or whatever, and I just wanted more control. And also because I've seen a lot of people not too happy with it. Now, I have often kept some of the transfers, like the transfers, depending on when I'm arriving to the ship, although I normally arrive early, so that hasn't applied, or certainly from the ship to the airport at the end, if I'm leaving. So certainly it seems to be an issue, and I don't know whether that's because they've done changes recently, whether it's certain itineraries, but I have seen those. Now, flight cancellations, of course, may be out of their control. So it's one of the tests is the responsiveness, and I kind of like to be, generally speaking, more in control. But definitely, it does seem to be an issue. Laura asking the question, I think I probably answered that. So being back in the UK, I think I'm only back for 3 weeks in total. It's been a little bit chaotic because I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to get videos done, get stuff sorted. Because we were away for Christmas last week, we had people staying. This weekend we've got people staying. So it's been a little bit manic, and the weather's been terrible. So traveling over the holiday period, as I mentioned, in case you hadn't joined, I'll whack it up again. Very excited because we're doing two things. Sorry, I saw your question up there. So we're doing this trip on the 13th. So Miami, blah, blah, blah. Then after that, we're going to one of our favorite places in the world, which people think we're completely mad about. But we're then going to Vegas for the new year, which I'm very excited about. Really like Vegas. And no doubt we'll end up losing money. And but I love going to Vegas. So quite a busy time in Vegas lined up. So that's quite fun. And Mark is a big fan of Vegas as well. I think this is maybe his 5th time to Vegas this year because he's been working in California, big slugs of this year. So has been popping along to Vegas, which is quite good because he's a gambler and we get comped hotels. So that's quite good. Sarah H, good to see you here. Sarah pops in and out quite often with questions. I miss calling all ports. Calling all ports. Did they leave a card? Did I miss it? Francis is here. I think I might have missed calling because I'm guessing you're back from your trip. I hope you had a good time. Sarah H. Having experienced luxury, is it hard to enjoy a mass market cruise line / normal cabin? I split on a suite for our next cruise because only 3 nights, but worry I won't enjoy normal later. Sarah, great challenge. I don't really, because a lot of it hinges on the itinerary, what I'm doing. So I do kind of mix stuff up a bit. So, for example, I came off an incredible trip where I'd been on one of my favorite cabins of all time in a kind of a sweet thing when I was on Seabourn in the Kimberley. Then I went and I had a balcony cabin on Celebrity Eclipse for the group cruise, and I just enjoyed it because I'd chosen the right cabin. I think the secret there is partly it's the itinerary, how many sea days there are, how it's all linked in. So, for example, I do kind of enjoy it. So, just a lot of it hinges on what experience I'm looking for, who I'm with. So, if I'm with Mark, we might want a different experience because we want a bigger ship. So, we want more stuff going on, bigger casino, whatever. So I don't find it hard. What I do find it hard is to not have anything other than a balcony. I find that really hard. And I did go on a cruise where I had an ocean view cabin, and I did find that really hard, even though I don't use the balcony as much as I should. But you're right, it's some of the perks you miss. So a lot of it hinders. So I like it, the problem is if you go on a ship where, the suites have a specific restaurant and that is really a really nice restaurant versus the main dining room, which might be a bit more manic and having to wait. It's little things like that. But no, because I do pick and mix them around. So luckily I haven't got a complete suite never again thing. But you're right, it is a real risk. Okay, so Mark and Misha. So just to write, did you get a refund on your Antarctic cruise given it was shortened by a day? So no is the short answer. So basically, because what they did is, for those who don't know, and in fact you'll see next week the vlog comes out. I was going to release the vlog this week. I've released it next week publicly. It's available currently for patrons and members because I referred to a video at the end which wasn't finished editing because it's more complicated to edit. So I pushed the vlog back to next week because otherwise people get a bit frustrated when I mention another video and then it's not there and they want to watch it. So next weekend it'll come out. But I mentioned that our cruise got shortened by a day. So no, we didn't. But because what they'd done is they had then laid on a whole day of activities in Port Williams. So loads of different activities around that. Now, to your point, Mark and Misha, is you can theoretically, depending on your insurance you've got, if you've missed a port, you can sometimes claim that back. Now, I guess because we didn't really miss a port, we had a day in Port Williams. They would probably have also argued we actually got to South Georgia a day early because there was this massive storm that they were out running and they had 4 engines going and the storm was behind us and pushed us. So we actually got there early. So we actually had more time in South Georgia, which kind of compensated for that. But short answer was no. And it kind of links a little bit back to that question. I think if you go on Antarctica, you have to assume that the itinerary will not run as planned. Sometimes they will sit to wait before they head out on Drake Passage because Drake Passage is too rough, or they might come back earlier. Every one of the 3 Antarctic trips I've been on, we have left slightly early to miss Drake Passage issues. And to be honest, most people, when they hear what the said Drake Passage, they would then they would then make sure that they're happy about that. So yes, a Navigator you've got, so Navigator we've got, I'm trying to remember Navigator, put about Navigator. So Navigator, that was a good point. I guess you're saying when you're choosing between the different ships, if having a wider choice of specialty restaurants is important. The Navigator, a regional Navigator, let's say, that you have Seti Mare in the evening, you've got Compass Rose, and I guess there's one other, I actually can't remember. I probably should remember. You can tell that the especially for me is less critical. That's 25-day. It might be more critical, but that's a good point Warren to raise, is that if you want specialty dining and options, that's the other point. And also another thought which sparks coming to Warren's point is thinking about the dining point, because Vikings buffet restaurant will open in the evenings as a buffet restaurant. So if you want to have that option of casual dining, the problem with going on Seabourn and also the problem with going on Regent is they don't have that casual dining option. So you do either have to go to the Sette Mare, the Italian, or you have to go to the Compass Rose or whatever, or have room service. You don't have the buffet option, where Viking does have the buffet option. So that's, thanks for that trigger there, Warren, around the dining options. Calling all ports are here, which is great. We're going to plan our trip to Japan. How many days do you suggest staying in Tokyo before cruise departs or after Hong Kong? Great challenge, because in fact I'm going to in February, which I'm extremely excited about. I'm doing, because I want to try Crystal, I'm doing one of their repositioning cruises, sort of a combo repositioning cruise, which goes from Tokyo into Shanghai, which I really want to go and visit again, ends up in Manila. So I have built in, I think I've got, the flight, my flight arrives early in the morning. So I think I've got all of Monday, all of Tuesday, all of Wednesday, all of Thursday. The ship boards on Friday. So I'm now building 4 full days of exploring. I had 3 days there last time and I was very busy. So I would try, if you possibly can, Andrew and Diane, try and if you can allow 4 days. I wanted to, so I've even been there, spent 3 days exploring, but I want to spend more because I want to use, so you can do day trips on the bullet train, the Shinkansen, which I really, really want to do some of those day trips as well, just experience the training, get a little bit out. So I want to build some of that time in as well. So I would try and do 4. I'm actually flying from Manila back to Hong Kong, and I'm spending, I think, 3 days in Hong Kong. Now, when I've been to Hong Kong before for work, maybe 1 or 2 days. Last time we were there, which was a long time ago, I think we were there like years ago, maybe probably coming for 8-9 years ago. We spent 3 days in Hong Kong, and that was probably okay. But when I was, it depends if you want to go and build in, like going to Disneyland and Hong Kong, yeah. But if you just, in terms of, going up the Victoria's Peak and just generally exploring around, I would try and spend 2 or 3 days. I think I've got, I'm trying to think of the days that I've got 2 full days in the day I fly, because my flight goes out like mid 11 p.m. or something. So I have 2 days plus the flying out day as a full day. But that's what I've done. So if you can flex it around that, that's what I would, if you possibly can, I would suggest. Obviously, it's a lot of time to go know, because both of you are working. Michelle, great question. Great question. What is about the Panama Canal that you love? So as you know, one of my obsessions, as I mentioned earlier, is Panama Canal. What I like about the Panama Canal is, and particularly the old canal, I have not yet been through the new canal. I should try and get through the new canal on a bigger ship. But I love it because it is one of the most important and significant engineering marvels ever created. It was built in 1914. It opened in 1914. It has the most horrific story behind it. I think when the French tried to build it, I think it was around about 20,000 people died from, not so much about injuries, from illnesses, which people didn't understand, like malaria and yellow fever. The politics behind it, with the Americans coming in and creating, the Panama Canal kind of area, which was kind of US thing, the politics behind it, but just the phenomena and the way it works with the structure behind it and the lake, and just the sense of just being part of something phenomenal. So that I like. I also like the fact that you get this incredible cruising experience before, because if you do the transit, you can do a bit of, like on this one we're doing the Cayman Islands, we're going to do a bit of Columbus, you get a bit of the Caribbean experience. But then once you head to the other side, we're going to Guatemala, we're going to the rainforests, we're going to Puerto Quetzal, we're going to Mexico. So you're getting also a flavor of kind of some of Central America, that whole very kind of more exotic kind of stuff. So I really just like that combination. Tiohara question. Last time around, you did a lot of discussion about Antarctica. I was wondering if you just bought all those clothes locally, or did you have to go to specialty stores? Great. So what you'll find, Tiohara, is that pretty much every expedition line, now I haven't looked at every single one, but pretty much every expedition line I've looked at will give the option of, they'll have a partnership. One of the lines that have a partnership with is a company called Ship to Shore. I'm sure there's other ones. And often what you can do is you can order much of that equipment that you want. So, your base layers, your waterproof pants, if boots aren't provided, boots, your gloves, your hats, your neck gaiters, that you can order those online. They'll have a recommended list of clothes, and they'll sometimes have little packages. They'll say if you want package A, which is the basics, or package B, more exotic stuff with hand warmers and whatever. And they will deliver those to the cabin, so you don't have to take them with you. So that's what we did originally. Is the very first trip we ever did was to the Arctic, and it was on Silversea, and they had the partnership. They still have the partnership. So we ordered all the stuff. In those days, you have your own boots. So when we got to the cabin, it was all there. And of course, what's important, one of the most important things is the parka, which the expedition lines will provide, so they can make sure it's the right one, but also they like everyone to go out with the same color. So it's obviously all out in red. I think, if I remember correctly, is it when we were on Hapag-Lloyd, they were blue. I think Seabourn is yellow. So they have these very bright colors that they can see. And also importantly, what they do, particularly in the Arctic, by the way, is the guests have one color parka, and then the polar bear guards have a different color, so you can also spot who the expedition team and stuff is. So that's how I did it. You'll find online, you'll often find in many countries, certainly the big countries I've seen online, some will sell those packages as well. And obviously you can go to Amazon, but pretty much I think almost all of the stuff that I've taken is from ship to shore. Things like I had some undergloves, thinner undergloves, which said when you take them off to use your cameras and stuff, they kind of wear out quicker. So those I just bought on Amazon. Tom, good to see you here again, Tom. We have an April 2025 4-week trip to Australia, Sydney, Hamilton Island, very nice. Adelia, I don't know that. Tasmania, and ending in Brisbane. How early do we need to make dining and show advanced reservations? Okay, Tom, a lot of that hinges on, I'm assuming that's a cruise. Yeah, they're saying a lot of that hinges on which line you're on. So my recommendation is as soon as they open, get in there. And particularly, what I learned the hard way on my very first region trip, my very first Viking trip, for example, because when they're open, people who are on those lines, they swoop in and they take all the best dining advanced reservations. Now, when you talk about show advanced reservations, I'm guessing that you might be doing more of like a Norwegian or Royal Caribbean trip, because I know Royal Caribbean have a lot of amazing Australia trips. There's some people I follow on Instagram who basically travel pretty much full time, and they do a lot of Royal Caribbean stuff around Australia. They're from Australia. As soon as you possibly can, because you can always change them, without penalty. So I would get in as quickly as possible, so you get the date, the time, but literally as soon as they open, I would do. The Retain Life. Your thoughts on Mexico want to charge a new tourist tax for cruise passengers, or cruise lines start to cut back on stops to Mexico? So for those who don't know, quite a few places are introducing taxes. So we've seen, obviously, Venice has introduced a tax. Naples this week are talking about introducing a tax as well, because they feel that their sort of older town is getting a little bit swamped. Other places around, I think even Edinburgh and Scotland's talking about taxes. So a lot of places are looking about introducing taxes to obviously raise revenue, and also to try and control a little bit of the tourism. So I did see the point of Mexico, and I haven't seen cruise lines' reaction to it. I would be surprised. I think they're talking about a $5 tax, if I remember correctly. And we don't know if they're going to do it, because in reality, the challenge they've got, if you've got those cruises coming that are, home ported in San Diego, or some of them go out of San Francisco and stuff, they have pretty limited options where they can go. So I think they're going to be challenged. And also, a little bit like I'm doing now, coming around, I'll bring that up again. So it's going to be over your question. But once you come back up here, sort of between your Guatemalas, your Nicaraguas, and anything over there, there's nowhere you can go. And people, I'm not sure people are going to want to have 5 or 6 sea day trips. It will be a harder sell. I mean, they may dial back a little bit, but I think I'm sure there'll be some kind of balance. So I don't know, and I haven't seen any comments from the cruise line. So I will be watching. I just literally saw it in as you did there. So I will definitely keep a look on that. So Lucy's mum, good to see you. Waiting flight to Tokyo, very exciting. have a great time as well. Sarah has been actually doing a ship visit on Queen. I didn't know you were doing it today. You're doing. Hopefully, you're doing. Are you doing afternoon tea? I'm guessing that's probably no time for tea. I guess because with the time they would have done tea. That's annoying. They didn't give you the afternoon tea opportunity. Marta, just write the word question so I don't miss it. I didn't miss just because then I don't miss it if I see it there. We're cruising from Miami to Barcelona or Caribbean on the Explorer, stopping on the Azores. Martin, I don't know the Azores particularly well, so I'm going to the Azores again, but only in April. And then I think we also do when I do that trip later on. So I'm going twice to the Azores. So I don't know the Azores particularly well. When we went to the Azores, we literally just walked around, and because it has lots of those kind of Portuguesey kind of elements. So I literally self-explored. So I don't know. I don't have a great tip. So if anybody does have any great Azores tips, both for Martin and for me, that would be good, because I haven't actually booked what I'm going to do in the Azores yet, because I'm going to explore a journey, and this sounds terrible, I have to say. Everything else is great, and Mtozin is great, but this sounds terrible, and I cannot work out it, that I haven't got excursions up, and it keeps telling me I need to talk to my travel agent and stuff. So I'm guessing it hasn't come out. So I haven't figured out what I'm going to do the Azores yet, and I can't remember what I had looked at for the October trip. Jerry, what is the shortest cruise that you have ever done? Well, the shortest cruise, Jerry, that I've ever done, although it's not strictly a cruise, is one night. And that is when, and I've done it 2 or 3 times, a one-nighter. I did it once on Pinot Britannia, where I went to the naming ceremony, and we stayed there. Then I had the naming ceremony, the Queen named the ship, and then everyone at the naming ceremony then had time on the ship, and we had a night on the ship, big sort of gala dinner, and they were kicked off the next day. And also I once did it on the Silver Muse. I did a one-nighter where they had hosted an event, although that one didn't really count as a cruise because it didn't actually even leave the docks. That probably wasn't a cruise. Actually, Britannia didn't leave the dock either. So the shortest cruise where we actually sailed anywhere would be 2 nights, I think, which was on the MSC Meraviglia. I'm trying to remember if that was 2 nights or 1 night. No, it was 2 nights. So MSC Meraviglia, when it came out of the dockyard, they sailed out of the UK, and again they did this it was like a shakedown cruise. That's what I'm looking for 2 nights, and we basically didn't go anywhere. So I think that's the actual one where we actually cruised anywhere was 2 nights. The shortest one theoretically is 1 night, but we didn't leave, so that's not really a cruise. So Mark, a New Zealand cruiser, early 60s, Queen Mary to Norway, absolutely wonderful, suited my music. Opportunity for Virgin Iceland cruise, good price. Not sure it's for me, not a party person. Well, Mark, you probably, if you've got Queen Mary 2 on one extreme, you've got Virgin on the other extreme. So it's extremely different in pretty much every way you can possibly imagine. Now, Virgin is not as party as people expect it to be. The average age on Virgin is in the 50s, so it does tend to skew a little bit younger, certainly than a Queen Mary 2 trip will be. I don't know what they'd be like going to Iceland. Obviously it's not an area they have huge expertise in historically. They do have very good food. Now, if you want to party, you can party. They will have the Scarlet Party. They do partying, out on the pool deck and stuff. But you can have a sort of a non-party environment. So it's not as party as people expect. It is definitely much more buzzy, more busy, and you're not going to get classical music. I'm trying to think about any classical. You're not going to get. You're going to have live music, but it's not going to be that sort of music. It's going to be much more contemporary music, but a range of music. So I would just approach with caution, but don't expect it to be a massive party. It's not like a party boat as such, but approach with caution, particularly if you like Queen Mary 2, because Queen Mary 2 is more staid, more dressing up. That is much more relaxed, much more vibey, much more buzzy kind of environment. Oh, so $45, not the $5. So I was wrong on that. So we'll have to watch the Mexican one. Let's have a look. Here we are. The Norwegian Prima Services charges fine print says beverage staff and butlers don't get a share of auto gratuities because they provide service to some guests. Okay. Very important. Great point. So basically, yeah. So if you travel in this, I found really surprising. But if you're fortunate enough to travel in the Haven on Norwegian, they specifically talk about the butlers are specifically getting excluded, and the beverage staff and the spa staff are included on most cruise lines. So, but I was really surprised on the butlers being excluded. And the butlers really hustled and really stressed the point. Now, what happens with beverage staff is they do obviously get tips. So if you've got a drinks package, the gratuities are added onto the drinks package, so they get their share of that tip. If you're buying drinks ad hoc, all cruise lines add on the gratuity on the drinks. It's already added on. It's part of the price. So what lines exclude staff? In many cruise lines, the spa staff are excluded because they are contractors. So which is also why you'll find spa staff, you'll find a gratuity often added on to the bill, so 18%, some 20%. And you'll also find that which is why I find going to the spa very stressful, is they earn a lot on commission. So a lot of their salary is driven by commission, which is why they sell products so hard. But generally speaking, the key one, so on most other cruise lines, by the way, butlers are not exempt. They are included in the pot. The first time I ever saw it was on Norwegian. But yeah, the bar staff, and I think also Norwegian, also the kids, the kids clubs. Check if you've got kids and going to the kids club. You'll quite a few cruise lines. The kids club people aren't included, and the spa people aren't included. And the kids club one you can sort of understand because not everyone's using this. So you can sort of, I guess, you can sort of see why they argue the butler one. But that was the first time that I'd seen it. But your point about you're saying you're tipping the butlers, just bear in mind that the drink price will normally, if you look at the tab, it's normally like pretty much every cruise line will add it on. And the mistake that people then make is they double tip because it's added on. So the price you see, and you buy a beer and you sign for $6 or $9, tips included in that. And a lot of people, but it's a line to tip on top, so you double tipping basically. Whichever you want to do is fine, of course. Andrew, how much would you tip your room steward for a week-long, say, cruise? Do you prorate the amount of longer cruises? Yes. So basically, Andrew, and I don't have a strict rule. I sort of look at between $3 and $5 US. So if I'm on a week-long cruise, I might round it up, to 25 or 30 or something. If I'm on a 30-day cruise, so I sort of round up, and I flex that based on how good they were, how much I liked them, and how good they were. But it's roughly around that. So I'm going to have a little slug here. Wu-Tang Live. Okay, let's do a Christmas tree aside. Christmas tree topical. We were away for Christmas, but because we had my sister and mum saying we were doing like a little mini Christmas, we actually put up the Christmas tree, and also Mark's got all his work, all his team coming around. So we thought we should have a Christmas tree for next week. Now the argument is, do we take it down? So the answer is artificial tree. We have a tree which looks very real, but we've had it now for let's think, we've had it probably like for 20 something years, and it's quite a big tree. It's probably nearly as tall as me. It's about 6 feet high, and it's quite zooty. It was quite a lot when we bought it because you assemble and you put all the branches in individually. It looks pretty good. I should probably post a picture of it. So artificial. I do worry a little bit about digging up and cutting down trees and planting trees. For us here, after Christmas, there's just trees in the streets and the council take them away. So we go artificial. Just because it's easy, and it's very erratic. We do it very erratically because often we go away for Christmas. So that's why we have an artificial tree, because like last year we put it up because we had people before we went away to Australia and stuff. So we don't have it up a long time. If we were here on Christmas, it might be different. But even growing up, we had an artificial tree as well. So that's what we did. Gary Cruise on the cheapest internet cruise line the community chooses. I've asked people before to choose lines. They chose, by the way, the one they chose was Margaritaville at sea. I didn't do it because it didn't win, but yeah. So I should really do some inside cabin. So people are obsessed with seeing an inside cabin. I should probably do it one time and just do it as a kind of a fun thing to do. Maybe I'll love it, and I'll come back to the discussion we had earlier that I get on my balcony obsession, which could be good. I'm trying to think, is this a question? Maybe on the Bliss for 5 days, Panorama Canal opposite where we decided on the balcony, knowing I just buy special dining to not worry about the main dining room. Good. So Bliss, you would have been on the new canal. I didn't need to get in the new canal. Dean, COVID. So great point is COVID shut down with the cruise industry. They came back with a vengeance. Has the cruise line demand leveled out now? No, the cruise lines. It's not. If you because I like every quarter I read all the updates from the cruise lines, and they've just had a whole series coming out. Absolutely not. They have sold a huge amount of 25 inventory already. They are selling over capacity. Particularly strong demand in the Caribbean, growing demand in Europe, as people, I guess, get used to the situation in Ukraine and stuff. Maybe airfares are coming down a little bit, so people are heading more to Alaska, cruising huge. The reason it's not coming down, Dean, is they are aggressively advertising and chasing new to cruise, both with direct advertising and through travel agents. And bear in mind, cruising is actually a very tiny percentage of travel. So they are aggressively recruiting new cruisers. Why you see lots of families appearing on lines that didn't used to be very family orientated. So they are growing demand quite rapidly, even though they're adding a lot of capacity. So certainly they are not projecting. If you look at both their results and their projections, obviously they tell Wall Street their future projections. They're projecting increasing demand. They increase, and as a result, they're also projecting increasing fares. And I have a video I'm working on, which hopefully will come out in a couple of weeks' time, around with fares absolutely going up, how do you manage to get around that and not pay over the odds? So I've got a long version script. I need to work it down. So the short answer, that's a long answer. The short answer is no. Barry is doing the Oceania Antarctic cruises February, Rio de Janeiro to Santiago, Chile. Any advice on planes back? Okay, so obviously, Barry, you know that you're not going to be landing in Antarctica. You're doing scenic cruising. But obviously, and I don't know which part of Antarctica you're going to, but many of the scenic cruising stuff, you'll go to the South Shetland Islands, and then a lot of them will do things like go down the Gulash Channel and stuff like that. So it can be pretty chilly outside. So you're going in February. So February is just as the weather's, it's towards the end of the summer, seeing it's starting to shift again, a little bit colder. But you're probably at that time of year, you're going to be out on deck. You're probably really looking at 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe a little bit warmer than that, but it still can be very windy. So my key advice, because they won't give you the parka, is the following. Have layers. So I would strongly recommend, particularly if you think you're going to be out on deck, you're looking for icebergs, maybe whales if they are, because it's a busy whale period that time of the year, is have what I guess I've seen everyone in the world calls them kind of long johns. So have a layer below, so you kind of your long johns and something underneath. Then have layers on top. So have maybe a sweatshirt, kind of maybe some sort of jumper or stuff. Say I'm trying to think of saving you buy stuff, but then have a really good wind resistant jacket. Have a scarf or a neck gaiter and have a hat. Also make sure you have sunglasses because it can be very bright there. That would be my key. So something that kind of covers your ears if you like me, particularly your head, but everybody that's key. And then in terms of gloves, waterproof gloves will be less key for you, but gloves that are pretty warm, particularly if you're using a camera, but you want one that are going to make sure you can still use your camera. So particularly if you've got a phone, if you're going to be using your phone, the glass needs a certain amount of contact to work. If you're using a normal phone, a DSLR or something like that, so something that you can kind of manage. But layers is absolutely key. And particularly if you're going to be out there for a while, if they do think Wales in the area and stuff, that would be key. Now, I just want to make a point about photography, by the way. If you are hoping to see Wales, you'll find, generally speaking, you need a good zoom lens. You can take some fairly good stuff with an iPhone, but it's not great. But that would be used, layers. Really good. Something that breaks, stops the wind is key. Okay, let's have a look. How are we doing? George, my retiring mother wants to do a full world cruise. Do you think Queen Anne is a good option? Is there a better line for solo retire circumnavigations? Always good to see Gary. So George, Cunard is very popular, obviously, for their world cruises. It normally gets a good deal of solo travelers. And the good thing, if you're doing the full world cruise, is what Cunard does is they have a lounge area or allocated area. I'm not sure where they do it on Queen Anne, but they will have an area which is where everyone who's doing the full world cruise has access to, and they'll have some concierge help in there. So it's also a good way of kind of connecting. But generally speaking, you'll find Cunard does attract a decent number of solo travelers, particularly female solo travelers, doing some or all of the world cruise. There are other lines that will, Princess, Holland America, but certainly I would say that it's a really good idea. Now, what she needs to understand with the full world cruise is there's a lot of sea days, because obviously you're literally getting around the world. So there is a lot of sea days. So she also needs to be clear that she's very comfortable with a lot of sea days. Obviously, Cunard has a pretty active program. The good thing about Cunard is because of their experience with transatlantics and stuff, they are used to having packed daily programs. They'll have daily solo meetups, stuff like that, but they'll have all the other stuff. They'll have enrichment talks, they'll have the crafting sessions, the dance classes. So they are really good in terms of lots of activity. So if she's going solo, that's why I would actually, now obviously the other lines put on programs, but I do think as a solo traveler, it is one of the best to go with. They know how to deal with solos. They know how to deal with world cruise, busy programs. So, but she does, in a sense, quite a lot of sea days. So she does need to be a little bit comfortable with her own company. But you'll find she should make friends pretty easily. So on that trip, which is pretty good. KB in the UK. Hi there, good to see you, KB, another regular. Can I ask, how will you and Mark be celebrating New Year's Eve in Vegas? Often thought of Alice and myself doing the same thing, but not sure what's the best way to make it memorable. So KB, Las Vegas, of course, can be quite cold at New Year. So we've done New Year once in Vegas when we actually took my mum and my mother-in-law to Vegas. And it can be a little bit chilly. Now, obviously, there's a lot of partying going on in Vegas. They close the whole strip, and that becomes packed full. They have a firework display, and of course, all the bars, all the restaurants have loads of stuff. Now, what we've done, KB, is all the shows that run on New Year's Eve. So what we did, in fact, last time we were with my mum and stuff, is we went to see La Rev, and then we actually walked all the way up the strip, all the way right the way down, like up. I always get the wrong road because actually the north and south, I always think it's down and up. But anyway, so we walked all the way from the Wynn all the way back up where we were staying at Vdara, which is sort of in the middle of the strip. And there was people starting to party and stuff. Now, we then actually just had our own little picnic, as it were. And because from there we had a great view across the fountains in my mum's and Sally's room of the fountain stuff. And we just kind of watched some of the partying and stuff going on. What we're doing this time is we're doing a similar thing. Is we are going to a show. We're going to see Car again at the MGM. Now we decided to stay at the other end of the strip. So we're actually staying this time in Delano. So we have a great view down the strip. But our plan is to not, because it can be crazy. So at the top of Delano, for example, there's a bar, but it costs $1,400 to go to the bar on New Year's Eve. And you get a bottle of champagne or something. But so some of the prices are kind of crazy in those places, those iconic places. So what we're doing is we're actually going to go to see Car, and we're going to have dinner at the Wolfgang Puck restaurant that we really like there in GM Grand, and then we will probably go back to our room, which has a great view of the strip. So we've got one of that strip view, kind of watch the fireworks and stuff going on. But you'll find all the restaurants are open, the shows are on, so it's quite a nice way of doing a combination of show. If you want it, they close the whole strip. So one thing I would say, KB, if you do go, one of the mistakes we sort of made is we didn't really think it through. So we were staying in Vdara, and we'd booked to see a show all the way down. So we had to go really early before they closed the strip, because once they close the strip, moving around Vegas is pretty difficult because all the back streets get absolutely rammed full. So unless you want to walk a long way, so you just have to be kind of cautious. So this time we've done MGM's not so far away from where we're staying. So think a little bit about local. Of course, if you want to then go out on the street, but there's stuff happening out on the street, people partying and drinking and stuff, and the fireworks and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're doing. We're not particularly party animals. So, but what we're actually doing is we're going the next night to the Skyfall, which is then just normal kind of price, as it were. Hopefully that's answered your question, but it's not. Bear in mind, Vegas, because Vegas isn't that warm, so all the pools are closed. They close about October to March and stuff. And it's interesting actually, because the hotel prices get crazy on New Year's Eve, but outside of that's not too expensive actually. But New Year's Eve is, of course, is very expensive, like so many places. Let's have a look and see before we wrap up if I have missed anything. Lots of chats by the looks of it, which is great. People helping everybody with their questions. Lots of discussion on the Mexico. Sarah was home for tea, had lunch and bubbles on Queen Anne, so the grill suites. They are nice, the grill suites. I agree with you. Francis, great to see you here, Francis. I'm doing a land tour of England in April. Is it a good idea to book tickets for Westminster Abbey and the Houses of Parliament ahead of time? Absolutely. Make sure you book Houses of Parliament ahead of time, because they book those. April, I think you're going to be too early for Buckingham Palace. Double check if any of Buckingham Palace is open. They're starting a big renovation of Buckingham Palace. So I don't know whether next summer, if that's going to be closed, but I think it's a little bit too early anyway for that. The good news is they're doing a big renovation of Buckingham Palace. It's unlikely that King Charles is going to move into Buckingham Palace. So they're talking about perhaps opening that for a longer part of the year. It'll obviously be used for set occasions until the official thing, but it sounds like they're open for more of the year for tourists. Westminster Abbey is less popular, but I would kind of book it in advance. But House of Parliament, absolutely, definitely. Now, we made the mistake even with because I realized my sister and Sally, my mother-in-law, hadn't been there. We looked a couple of weeks before, and it was already sold out. So definitely book that. But Francis, keep me posted in April. No, I may or may not be in April. It'd be great to see if you are passing through. That would be fantastic. So let's have here we go. I'll do another question. Another question here. The only Lithicat Seabourn says gratuities are neither required nor expected. Despite that, would it be appropriate to tip? Of course, no crew member is ever going to say no to that. Now, I was a little bit disappointed on my last Seabourn cruise when I was on Seabourn Pursuit in the Kimberley, because I was planning to tip my fantastic cabin stewards, but I was a little bit disappointed because in the cabin there's a little name sign, but they had put rather pointedly envelopes next to the name sign on the Let's Stay, and it's like, guys, this is not really a Seabourn thing. I was going to tip you anyway, and I felt a bit annoyed. Not annoyed, that's too extreme, but I was just a bit disappointed because that's their whole thing. But yes, they were great. I tipped, absolutely. Probably a chance for a couple more questions. So my longest consecutive cruise on one ship was 7 weeks. We did half of a world cruise on Queen Victoria. We actually did 10 weeks cruising in total. So we did 7 weeks from Southampton to Sydney. We got off in Sydney, saw our friends in Sydney, spent some time at Noosa. Then we actually, for maybe 10 days, something like that, if I remember correctly. Then we flew from Brisbane to Hong Kong, and then did 3 weeks on Queen Elizabeth around China and Japan. But our longest specific was 7 weeks. So I'll do a couple more questions. Normally I finish by now, but would you suggest European river cruise as the first cruise for my nervous and yet to cruise husband rather than ocean? Yes, but it is a completely different experience. So going on a river cruise is not a good taster primer for going on an ocean cruise. They are extremely different experiences. The ship, the experience, it's totally different. So if it's a way of getting into the world of cruising, absolutely, but it's not a sail for ocean in reality, and may in some ways put him off, possibly because you don't have a lot of choice. It's more regimented. But if it's a way of getting into the idea of cruising, I would always definitely definitely encourage them to do that. Right, so we have churned through loads and loads of time, loads of questions. I think there's one or two I didn't get a chance to answer. I apologize for that. So I will have a live stream next week. As I mentioned, if you're a patron or channel member, there's one on Saturday. The public one will be on Sunday. So I will see you next Sunday, hopefully, or Saturday if you're a patron member. Have a great week. And thanks for joining me. Really appreciate it. Take care.